Good morning. Welcome to our English farm here at the Frontier Culture Museum. My name is Sally, and I am standing in front of our English house that actually comes from Worcestershire, England in the West Midlands. And this is the home of a yeoman farmer, someone who is working hard and doing well. He would be the top of the working class, and then above him would be the gentry of the aristocracy. And those are folks, of course, that have titles. And this yeoman farmer, not all yeoman farmers are doing as well as this one. But this yeoman farmer who lived in this English house, he had three sources of income, growing grains like wheat, barley, and rye, and he harvested those and hired people to help him. So he did have servants and could hire laborers also as needed from time to time. And he had about 100 sheep. He'd be shearing them twice a year and selling the fleeces at market. And the third source of income was thanks to the lady of the house. She's going to be making cheese. And this is from your cow's milk, of course, and they had 15 to 30 milking cows. They would be selling the cheese. The lady would be selling that at fairs a good bit. So she's going to be saving that and maybe having 4 fairs a year or something like that. She would be selling the cheese at. She can also be selling that locally. Now, they did have a 1 to 5 acre kitchen garden, and the extra produce and veggies and things like that from the kitchen garden could be sold at market as well. So you see, this yeoman farmer was doing very well, and he did have 150 to 300 acres of land that he mostly owned in a freehold, and he also rented some at land as well, and that would be in a copyhold, which is very similar to a lease. So this is our English house. And now we're in the hall of our English house. In this room, you're going to be doing your cooking, you're going to do your baking, and this is where the family will be dining, so it's like a kitchen dining room. And it's also like a family room, if you will, because the family spends time here. So to begin, right over here, this is where you're going to be doing your cooking, and we have our swinging crane, which is really nice. You can put your cast iron pot or kettle right there, like so on that. And you can also go like this, real carefully, I have to use my apron, go like this and actually move it like that. That's pretty cool. And then you can slide that back when you want to put it back over the heat. It's nice if you just want something to simmer a little bit. Now the nice thing about that cast iron kettle, we have cooked several things in that, quite a few actually, but 2 in particular I'd like to talk about. One of them is mushy peas. The English are known for their mushy peas, and so that's one of the things we've enjoyed cooking in there. Another one is a boiled pudding, and the nice thing about that, if you have some stale bread and you maybe baked it on Saturday, and you're coming up on Thursday or something like that, and you would grate the bread, and you're going to add like raisins and currants and spices. It's a great way to use up that, stale, more on the stale side of your bread, if you will. And often today it's referred to as your lovely puddings that we have today. It's great. And it's a bread pudding actually. So that's one of the things we're going to be doing with over here with our swinging crane area when you're doing your cooking. Over here we have our bake oven going, and we're going to keep that going for 4 hours, and then we'll go ahead and put the coals and ashes in the pit in the bottom, and we'll be cooking some bread in there. And I will actually show you this. We have started this bread right here, and we're letting it rise right now. And then when the oven's hot enough, we're going to go ahead and we're going to be baking that. And you can look that up in another video that we have specifically about baking bread. And the room, as I mentioned before, not only is this room used as a kitchen, it is also used as a dining area and a family room. And right over here, we have our table that the family would be dining around. And at the end, we have our yeoman farmer's chair. This is rather ornate and has a lovely carving. This is very nice for the yeoman because he's often referred to as the benevolent king of the family. So as you can imagine here, and like I said, we have started some baking, so that's why we have different little flour and such here. But the family would not only be dining here, but you could be doing some sewing, you could be doing some knitting, using some of the wool from your sheep, and with the yarn and such. And you could be having some conversations and those kinds of things. We are now in the buttery of our English house, and the buttery is a room that is used for storing things. It's very much like a giant pantry. And right here, one of the things we're storing in here is our cheese press. And as I mentioned earlier, the lady of the house is going to be making cheese and selling that at market, so that was very important. source of income for the family. So what's going to happen, you would have already heated up your milk and added rennet and had your curd forming. Then what you're going to do is go ahead and take some of that curd and squeeze it. And you're going to be crumbling it right here in this cheese vat, which would have been lined with a cloth. So you're going to go ahead and finish completely going through the curds, putting them right in there, squeezing them and crumbling them in there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to be putting a bag of weight, a bag of, could be rocks, or you're going to be putting a bucket with some water in it, and that's going to weigh down this our cheese press and be pressing those curds, going from about like this many curds to squeezing it down like that, pressing it down like that, and you're going to be making new milk or house cheese. So that was very important for the family. Over here we have some pieces of equipment that would be used for brewing. And the lady of the house is not only brewing and making cheese, she's cooking, she's baking, she's the gardener, and she's the doctor. But back to our brewing, what's going to be going on the very first time that you're taking your water, boiling that up a couple times, you're taking that through your barley malt, and you're making your drink. That would be your ale. That's has the highest alcohol content, and that's what the adults are going to be drinking. Then the second time you take it through, that would be your table beer. And that's when you're having another batch of water, you boil it up a couple twice and take it through the barley malt. And the third time you're going to do that, that is your small beer. It's another batch of water again. It would be have the lowest alcohol content. That is something the kids would be drinking. Now, the reason that we're doing this is water is not safe to drink. They did not know that boiling was what went ahead and made it safe for water to drink until the 1800s. And after all, we're in the 1650s and 1680s. So we do not know that quite yet. But anyway, they do know that drinking ale or small beer or table beer is important for everyone for their health. And right over here we have our barrels where you're going to be storing your ale or small beer, and you're also going to be storing in another barrel, of course, but you could be storing cider or perry. And these are both made from fruits of your orchard. Namely, the cider comes, of course, from the apples, and your perry is made from pears. This is the parlor in our English house. And this is the room where you're going to be, it's going to be your very best bedroom, and it's also a sitting area. This is the chance for the family to show their social status to guests they would like to impress when they come to call or to visit. So what we have right here is a little bit of a sitting area right over here where you could be reading a book, you could be having a conversation, maybe having a light snack or something along those lines. Then right over here we have our tester bed with the tester curtains and our bed rug. And over here we have our press cupboard. And this is one of our finest pieces in the house, very much showing your wealth with this. And you have your that you can open up and see. You'd be storing linens. We also have pewter that would be storing above. And showing these things, well, on a very comical note, we have right here our chamber pot. This is also a necessity for the house. What's going to happen, this is going to be used as your nighttime bathroom. Not trying to gross anyone out, but this is the truth. And what's going to happen, you of course don't have a flashlight, you don't have electricity, you don't have matches, and if you're going to, usually when you wake up in the middle of the night, you're a little antsy and you don't want to wait a while for the flint and steel to take off so you can have some kind of a light source. So it's much easier to pull this out from under the bed and use it. Push it under the bed, and in the morning, the youngest person in the family would have the opportunity to, and the responsibility to empty the chamber pot or empty the contents outside. Now, if you're a toddler, maybe a 4-year-old is going to do that. Now, there is another thing that you might want to do with the contents of the chamber pot, and we're talking about pee or urine. You're going to save that up in a barrel in the cattle shed. It will turn to ammonia, and you can use it as a cleaning agent. I hope I did not gross you all out. Why would anyone want to leave this English house and this English farm? Well, this yeoman farmer is not going anywhere. He's doing very well, as I already mentioned. His oldest son would inherit the house and land by primogeniture, so he's taken care of. the second and third sons in the family, they would have choices whether they wanted to go to the military, the university, and become like a lawyer, doctor, or minister. They could also be apprenticed to another yeoman or a tradesman. And what's going on at this time in the 17th century? We have the 30 Years' War, which affects all of Europe, so that kind of puts the economy in somewhat of a depressed state. We also have, for all of Europe, we also have in England, we have the English Civil War, and what's going on then, that of course puts it, again, for also continues on to be somewhat of an economic depression or recession there. So the yeoman farmer and his sons are all taken care of, but what about the laborers? They have gainful employment, as I already mentioned, working for the yeoman and for other folks, but the yeoman's, not the yeoman, I'm sorry, the servants' children, they don't have work. They're trying to find work. They go to London. They try to find work. They can engage in a contract, um, um, an indentured contract, shall we say. And someone in America, they get on a ship. Someone in America will pay for their passage. And then what happens? The laborer would work for the person who initiated the contract and work for them for a certain number of years. And after that time period, they would have their freedom. And then they would be able to earn some money and then have some land of their own, build a house and all that kind of thing. Dream of what they saw at this yeoman farmer's house. So I just want to thank you all so much for coming today. And thank you for taking and viewing our virtual tour here at the Frontier Culture Museum.